fair one the day before.
21st, 22nd, somewhere in there, 20th.
Cleavers are leaving. I said, get the heck out of here. Last year when they left, it warmed up. They're leaving. Cleavers, they're leaving Monday.
I saw you had the cover off the
Yeah.
camper.
Wednesday, December 27th, 2017, regular session of
You want to hit the hammer once or twice?
regular session of the Anamosa City Council at City Hall Council Chambers. 1.0 roll call.
Rich,
Here.
Bill,
Here.
John,
Here.
Ron,
Here.
Cody,
Here.
Betty.
Here.
2.0 motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings. December 9th, 2017, special council meeting. December 11th, 2017, regular council meeting. And December 12th, special council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
First by Rich, second.
Say something about.
No, sit down.
If I disagree with something in the minutes.
Not here.
Not now, not here. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Carried. 3.0 public hearings. 3.1 public hearing on proposal to sell 101 and a half East Main Street to Charlotte Shekel. I'll open the public hearing.
Any comments on it?
No written comments. We did have a gentleman stop in inquiring about the sale of the property, and I explained where the council was in the process. And that's all he asked.
Move to close.
Second.
First by Bill, second by John to close. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 4.0 presentations, none. 5.0 proclamations, none. Community action items. 6.0 community betterment. 6.1 discussion and possible action on resolution granting easement to Mike and Carrie Cladd to install and maintain concrete pad within West Liberty Street right of way.
So moved.
Second.
First by Cody, second by Bill.
I just wanted to hand out to you a copy of that
Thank you.
insurance information provided by Carrie and her husband. And it does meet, I had Adrian review it, it does meet the $1 million on the second page requirement.
So just for clarification, there will be something recorded so that in the event the property gets sold, the new buyers will have to do the same, correct?
That resolution will be recorded, yes.
And I was like 99% sure. I just want clarification. Thank you.
Any further discussion? It's a roll vote.
John,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
6.2 discussion possible action approving contract between City of Anamosa and Kara Briggs for the design, fabrication, and installation of artwork at the corner of South Elm Street and East Main Street.
Good evening. I am Mallory Hansen with Northeast Iowa RC&D, and this is Kara Briggs Farmer. This is our artist. She offered to come and talk with you this evening. We put together just a little overview for you, just as a reminder. Just for you to pass on that way. So last time I was here, we had a model for you, a scale model, and you'll see a photo of that in this packet here. And this is just kind of an overview, and we have a more official idea of what the size of that will be, and I'll probably let Kara talk to you about the size and the material, if that's okay, Kara. Maybe I'll have you explain that now so they know. Sure.
So my original concept for this was the question of how do we merge Anamosa's great heritages, you know, being Grant Wood's home, with its really rich modern bike culture, and what I sort of came up with was this Grant Wood window with landscapes throughout it that are built out of recycled motorcycle parts and automotive parts. So that's sort of the idea, is how do we get these two things together? And I thought this was kind of a fun way to do that. So it's my hope to work with the museum over the winter to gather as many parts as I can, because I really want as much of this as possible to come from local bikers. It's fun. It adds to the story. You know, you can look up at that flock of handlebar birds and say, hey, are those the bars off, you know, my uncle's shovel head? Well, they might be. So that was just sort of where I was coming from with that. The height we decided on was 15.5 feet by 9 feet wide. That will, at that corner where it's going, that will give us enough vertical presence that you'll see it when you're passing it at 20, 30 miles an hour, but it's not so overpowering. I know, you know, 15.5 feet seems really tall, but when you're not slowing down, because that will be viewed not by a whole lot of pedestrians, I don't think. I think it's mostly going to be car, truck, and bike traffic. It's just sort of a nice size, that it's got some visual weight, and it's my hope that it's interesting enough that every time you pass it, you know, you're seeing something new, or you're noticing something you didn't notice before. The main structure will be out of stainless steel, so that it won't require any maintenance. That's going to keep a nice bright finish. The chains, sprockets, whatever else I can find, those are going to be carbon steel. Those will develop a rust patina over time, and I think it'll work visually. That'll work nicely to have some different color and some different texture in there. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have about it.
Well, Greg's not here, but has it been determined where on that lot it's going to be placed? I'm assuming it's going to be angled at the corner, facing.
We haven't actually discussed exactly where in that space. I think we are going to look at where it is best visually for sight line,
Right.
and you know, where it's not going to be you know, ridiculously close to the fence, for example. You know, we wouldn't want to shove it in a corner.
Right.
But we hadn't actually talked about that, and I think that's something we probably need to work with
Right.
Greg on.
Yeah,
And-
I was hoping he'd be here. Did you get any feedback from Greg at all?
Yes, I gave Greg, I gave Greg a copy of the contract. And he's already done some research on getting the electric hooked up and the feasibility of that, so he's very comfortable with the contract. He doesn't have any issues with, you know, maintaining that, and he will be glad to work with the artist or Mallory to determine the best location for visibility from all angles.
I would also be more than happy to throw together something out of Luan or polystyrene that's roughly that size, so we can sort of, you know, have something that's that big, and we can go stand it up and move it around and run tape measures and look at it from all different angles and sort of see where we want it. That's certainly easy enough. That's, you know, just an afternoon.
I'm kind of a visual person. When we
Yeah.
get our home, I lay 2x4s down. Here's the wall gonna
Yes.
be. Here's
Yes.
the
Absolutely.
So yeah, it looks amazing though.
Thank you.
The other development since we last met with you is we do intend to place this on some form of a limestone base. Don't know exactly what it'll look like yet, or what the size. I think we talked about, I don't think I actually put anything on here for a size, but obviously something that's reasonable for the structure. So it may increase the height just a tish because of that, but I think the committee thought that would be a really nice personal touch for this area specifically. So that is the intention at this time. Still a little tentative, but I think it'll happen. Otherwise, yeah, and Tammy, you mentioned the lighting. We had talked about trying to do some form of uplighting for the evening. So we'll see if that can work or not. I think it'd be really neat.
Yeah, there's a, for accessibility very close to that, Greg said it's not a big deal.
Oh, good.
He said I'll look at it, so.
Did any of you have any other questions about the contract specifically? This is as basic as we could make it. We wanted it to be fairly simple between the city and Kara. Basically, a transfer of ownership is really the purpose of that contract, so that when it's done, the city is taking that ownership of the piece on their property. And then, hopefully, there's a part kind of about assistance with installation from Greg and kind of the things we were just talking about. So it's really meant to be simple. The actual contract for works to actually hire Kara to do this will come through the Northeast Iowa RC&D. That will be separate from you guys.
By the numbers here, the project is fully funded.
It is. So no funds would be requested from the city, just assistance and ownership.
The city would have to run any electric and stuff like that, right?
Yep, and that's what Greg has already researched.
Okay.
So, that'd be,
And we as a committee did talk about trying to see if we could find some donated material for the lighting, having the actual lights donated. So as to reduce that amount of cost going into that as much as possible. So the committee is comfortable doing that if we can make that work, pursuing some local companies.
Have you done other projects like this in other communities?
Not exactly like this,
How
but
fun.
on a similar scope, I did a big project in Marion. We got our town got a big Art Place America grant to overhaul like a big stretch of some rundown alley, because we're getting a new streetscape at some point in the future. We don't know when, but that's really gonna close off the front doors of some of our businesses, and so by reinvigorating this stretch of alley, we've already got a nice path for those businesses to open up their back doors. And it's turned into this really great, super cool social space, and everybody hangs out back there. So it was a 15 feet tall, 10 feet wide, 6 foot deep stainless steel arch with planters and benches that goes right in the entrance of this pedestrian alley. And since my shop was just like a block and a half away from the site, I didn't think it was good use of funds to hire a flatbed, hire a driver, and hire a crew. So we got a bunch of volunteers from through our Main Street program, and early on a Sunday morning while everybody else was at church, we slapped the thing on some furniture dollies. One of my friends who's a volunteer happened to be an off-duty officer, so he called his buddy Rose. Rose came up and gave us a police escort so we didn't get run over. We just sort of wheeled the thing up the street, stood it up, and plunked it down. And that's, I find, if I'm not in a big city, I'm going to take advantage of every wonderful thing smaller communities have to offer, and we save a ton of money by doing it that way. So it's my thought on installation was, don't spend money on a contractor who's going to bill you for contractor hours. It's a lot easier to just chat with whoever's in charge of the city guys to say, hey, can you get me 4 guys who have a couple hours in the afternoon? I'll bring it up and we'll walk it up, bolt it down, and be good.
This is a Marion. I want to
Yeah.
go by and see it.
Yeah, it's right on the main drag. It's right
Okay.
on 7th. It's in between a bar and a shop.
It's really
I'm
cool.
sure I've been there.
Yeah.
Move to approve. Second.
First by Bill, second by Cody. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
ladies.
girl.
6.3, discussion and possible action on resolution to proceed with acquiring title to abandoned property and subsequent sale of property located at 101 and a half East Main Street.
So moved.
First by Bill,
Second.
second by Betty. Any discussion? And it's a roll vote.
I have one question, so. Has there been an actual contract then that has been drawn up by agent, like a purchase contract, or is
Yeah,
that
the
done
purchase
after?
agreement was approved at the last meeting.
She's already
Okay.
signed it.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. All
Yep.
right, thanks.
I do have one question, and maybe I should have asked it earlier, but who determines when she starts to generate revenue off this property?
As soon as she gets renters in there, we will know, because the water bill will go into their name. So that's when we'll know,
Okay.
and I'd be glad to track that.
I would hope that we would.
And this is a roll vote.
Ron,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
6.4, discussion possible action on appointment of Sandra Antons to the Anamosa Library Board of Trustees to fill vacant position.
She will be a phenomenal asset to the library.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Bill, second by Cody. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Carried. 7.0, public safety. 7.1, motion to approve the renewal of beer and liquor license, a new Class C liquor license with Sunday sale privileges for El Certito 2 LLC.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Rich, second by Bill.
We got an opening date on that?
Pardon me?
We got an opening date yet?
She didn't say for sure, but she wanted me to call her right away tomorrow. So I'm assuming
Soon.
as soon as this is good, she's probably gonna be.
Their insurance effective date was September 1st, so I think they've been working at this a while.
All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 8.0, public works, none. 9.0, finance. 9.1, discussion possible action on offer of employment and approving employment agreement for the city administrator.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Bill, second by Rich. Any further discussion?
Pat's done a wonderful job.
Yes, he has.
I was thinking the other day, so glad we didn't have to do this without you, Pat.
If you don't mind, I have just a few comments to kind of wrap it up. So I did speak to Jacob earlier tonight, and he was here last week, has found an apartment to rent, and his hope is that sometime this summer, he'll be either build a house or purchase a house. So, and he met with Bob, I guess, last week as well, got the fingerprinting thing out of the way. So anyway, he's anxious to start on February 28th. But you do know they're expecting their second child in the middle of February. So do keep in mind that February 28th is a target date, and it could be a little later depending on when she gives birth to their second child. So anyway, I just want to thank the mayor and council for your work on all of this. You've been a great group to work with. Very, very pleased with how everything came together. Department heads were great to work with as well. Tammy was wonderful to work with as well. Also call attention to Rebecca. She was a great help with the library, and I sent a letter to the library board thanking them for the use of the facility. So that was one of the better facilities I've ever used to do that search process on Friday and Saturday. So it was just excellent the way we had all those rooms available to us. So thank you, Rebecca. Really appreciate your help on that. Cecilia Hatcher, thank her for the giving the tour for us on Friday afternoon. So, but all in all, it came together very well. And just another quick note, one of our ladies, the lady you interviewed on the Skype interview, she got a job last weekend. She's moving to Minnesota. And I am going to be doing a search in Britt, Iowa now. Emmitsburg did hire the gentleman I referred to him, so Emmitsburg doesn't need me. And then the next day, Britt, Iowa called me, so I am definitely going to be talking to the other 3 candidates that we had, which I have to tell you, and I've told you this before, I never had 4 candidates that the council looked at all 4 and said, man, we like all 4 of these people. Usually one is kind of just the odds-on favorite right from the start. And this was very unique in that we had 4 really good candidates. That doesn't happen very often. So I was just really pleased how it all came together and feel very good about Jacob. I think he'll do a great job. So did everybody get the little announcement that I had? Everybody okay with that? So I'll pass those out to the folks here. So any questions before you vote on the agreement? Okay. All right, good enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
I guess I have one question. So once he gets here, obviously, we're gonna wanna have like a meet and greet for the new city administrator.
I think that would
Pat,
be a great idea. Mhm.
Is there anything you do after this point?
One of the things I do is I sit down with him and share with him everything I learned from the process, from the department heads, from all of you, and just say, hey, if I were you, this is what I would do and this is what I wouldn't do. And just kind of be a mentor to them at the start. And they're welcome to take my advice or decline it. It's entirely up to them. But I will give them a checklist that I would say, here's what I think you should do and what you shouldn't do. So.
Well, and I think we have the advantage of you living
Yep.
here in the community, you having been the city administrator here before, that to have a go-to for him that is unbiased, not a city employee
Right.
nor a city council, I think it's a great asset to Anamosa that we have you.
And I don't charge for that. I always tell people phone calls are free. So unless I actually go to a meeting and do something, I don't generate an invoice. So Jacob will be free to call me as many times as he wants, and I'll be more than happy to help him in any way that I can.
That's
So.
good to know.
Hopefully he'll take advantage of that.
So I think he will. We've already had a chat about that, and
Good.
yeah, we have. So
You gotta start calling me dad, you know.
yes, I know. He's actually younger than all 3 of my kids.
I think he's younger than mine too.
Yeah.
Everybody's gotta
funny.
start somewhere.
That's right. Yep. He reminds me very much of myself when I, in 1978, started in Macokota at the age of 28 years old. So, yeah,
And
a
look
lot
how
of,
you turned out.
I just couldn't help but smile when I looked at the similarities between the 2 of us, going back to 1978. So,
That's awesome.
yep. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Pat.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Pat.
All those in favor?
Yep.
In favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 9.3, discussion and possible action on resolution hiring and setting salary for city administrator for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Bill, second by Rich.
Excuse me, did we skip 9.2 on the roll vote?
We're just there.
We're just,
We're there now.
I thought you just said 9.3.
no, 9.2.
I'm sorry.
And it's a roll vote.
Cody,
Is there
Yes.
discussion allowed from the public on this?
On the hiring of employee,
Yes.
No.
All right.
sorry, Cody,
Yes.
Betty,
yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rod.
Yes.
9.3, discussion and possible action on approving the reappointment of Adrian Knuth as city attorney for 2018 for a fee of $175 an hour.
Is there a discussion on that too?
No.
No.
This is something that, Adrian does every year, just to let you know. And the reason I did it now was rather than wait till first meeting in January to make that determination if cause he's gonna be charging us that higher fee as of January, so I wanted to make sure you guys were all okay with it.
So is it standard practice that Adrian just, and nothing against Adrian, but do we never open it up? Does he come to us and say, I wanna stay and be the city attorney? Or do we open it up for bids from other city attorneys, or?
We've inquired of other local attorneys within our area to see if they'd be interested in the position, and the last time we did it, I think when Al, was right after Al started, and nobody that we contacted was interested at all.
Well, and the reason
Or local, I'm talking
Right,
about local
and
attorneys.
a lot of local city attorneys don't want to do it because of the conflict. A lot of times, the people who have questions against, or the city has to make a decision, the decision might be against a client of theirs. You know what I mean? And they don't like that being in the middle of my client and my city job. So a lot of cities have gone away from doing the local for that one reason, is they feel they have a stronger fiduciary responsibility from your city attorney to the city, because you don't have that conflict. So I'm just curious if we just always do it this way, or if we get others.
If you two wanna talk, you can go outside to the lobby. John, if you guys wanna talk while we're conducting the meeting, you can go out to the lobby.
I apologize. Me too.
Right. Sorry.
That's okay. As long as the people at this table heard and are on board, I'm good.
We'll make a motion to reappoint Adrian as the city attorney.
First by Bill,
Second.
second by Rich. Any further discussion?
My only comment is we're not gonna get anybody from outside of Anamosa for that rate.
No, you're right.
Kind of short-sighted without actually looking into it, but.
And not just short-sighted, but sometimes it's more than just the money. I noticed we paid $5,000 on the budget for a month, is that right? What did we just pay for last month for Adrian? I was gonna kind of ask for a recap of what,
We're not to the bills yet.
I understand that, but before I make this decision, I kind of wanna reflect on how the city attorney's working, and maybe we keep Adrian. I'm not saying we get rid of Adrian, but we come up with a new way of how we do it.
This was a billing, that we paid for, and this went from approximately October 25th. So it was about a month's worth of billing. This is a lot busier now than it has been normally, because without a city administrator and the topics that have come up. In general, areas, there was $4,000, police matters was $1,700, the, old hospital was $400, personnel matters in the PD was $230, the Main Street, 101 and a half East Main was $273, the easement for Platts was $234, and then our trail project along Shaw Road, the Wops Finnegan, was about $384. So we have had a lot more, I've had more contact with Adrian, you know, in the absence of an administrator, and we have had a pretty full palette of issues recently, as you all know, that need,
And he's been required to be here a couple of those
yes,
meetings.
and that is part of it too, so, I will say, since Al had started, our city attorney fees, if you weren't here before, had dropped tremendously. Every city administrator, processes things differently, and it depends on what's on the table, but,
Well, and if we ever feel there's a conflict, we can always go hire a different attorney.
And he has recused himself on.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not that we have to use him for everything. We can go out and seek other advice.
That's true.
Has there been other times we've used a different attorney? Ready to vote? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Carried. 9.4, discussion and possible action approving the fire department budget for fiscal year 2018-19 as recommended by the Fire Service Board.
Keep in mind on this budget, the item that is not in there is gonna be the, principal and interest payment on the, fire department pumper truck, but that'll be from reserves, from the equipment fund, so, but it will be an expenditure going out from reserves, so it's just not listed on here.
So moved.
Second.
First
So what has been submitted is their proposal, obviously, for 2018, 2019, with all expenditures less fire truck payment.
Correct,
I want to reiterate, all anticipated expenditures.
yes.
Okay.
Cody and I were both part of that.
And this
I
has
was
to
there
go out
also.
earlier because it's through the countywide and not just our budget here in the city.
And yeah, that's the reason by 2080 agreement, we need to get it passed and tentatively approved by council to go to the county so that they can, Janine can do the assessment to the townships according to the budget and their percentage and that Iowa State formula.
Well, and the county guys are tougher, I think, on the fire department than we ever are. There.
They work together really well, though, I think.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
good committee that meets.
They had a lot of good discussion. I was at the meeting. I thought they had good discussion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 9.5, discussion and possible action approving change order number 1 for Second Street Lift Station Improvements Project to Rickless Excavating in the amount of $51,424.98.
So moved.
First by Cody,
Second.
second by Rich.
Is there anybody here present representing Snyder and Associates? Thought when we spoke, Tammy, that there would be somebody here.
My understanding was Lindsay was supposed to be here tonight.
You want to table this, Rod, until you can ask her? I'd kind of like to know what was included in it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we received breakdowns in the packet, but an additional 31 working days. When was the project to be completed?
Originally it was November 17th.
November
They added-
17th.
They added an initial 24 days, I believe, which took it out to today, December 27th, working days, Monday through Friday, no holidays. And then now with this total in whole, it takes it out to that January date.
So January 4th? Is that
And-
for the
That's just like another week.
Right, and their intent is, in case you hadn't heard, is in that first couple days of January, they're gonna do that test run on that Second Street lift station. They're
Start
gonna
this-
pull it up and get it working
the
and make
10th.
sure it's working correctly. And that's scheduled for January, partly because of the holidays.
When did you say that was scheduled for?
I believe it's the 10th.
So that's even past the January 4th.
Yeah, they really stretch this one out.
What'd you say?
They really stretch this one out.
Conveniently,
Well, 16.
another 31 days conveniently. I guess I have questions as to Snyder and Associates approving this, not approving, but they're recommending that we approve it. Changes 2 through 4, an additional 4 working days. Now, is that because the project was delayed 4 days for them to do it, or did they just come up with 4 days to submit? Likewise, the changes 5 through 7 and 9, an additional 22 working days. You know, was a representative from Snyder there and watched the delay because of these changes extend to 22 working days? That's my question. Or did they just receive what was submitted from the contractor and say, yeah, I can see where all that would add up and take that much time?
I can tell you, Rod, that they were on site several days throughout that period here in the last probably 3 weeks. There's been some setbacks. They had 4 days of digging over in that park looking for a water main. I believe that was the first 22 or 4 days included.
Well, this separates
Is
that.
that something?
Yes. So I mean, the way my mind is working here is, it was 4 solid days of manpower and equipment to find that location. 4 continuous days.
Should have been a map somewhere where that water main was to take that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says, inaccurate water main locations.
Yes.
Correct. And it went
So that
on
means
for
they
some-
were just, that means that you just start digging and looking.
For
And
4 days.
that's what they did.
they
And
dug
it
holes.
did take
Yeah.
those days to do that.
Well, I would think someone from Snyder would have been there overseeing this part of the project,
And
because it
there's-
wasn't part of a contract.
And for 4 days of digging, you don't find a pipe and follow it?
So, I guess those are the questions.
I mean,
that-
I
that
would
were-
think with the equipment you have, I don't know, I don't do this, so
It was on the wrong side of the street, as I understand it.
Yeah. I just am questioning a 31-day extension at $51,424.98.
Well, keep in mind, part of that was the Walworth Avenue, which we knew was that additional upsizing of that pipe, which the council was aware of, and we knew that was gonna add some days to it. And they also ran into issues with the service line at the house with the retaining wall.
and I have questions about that when we get to it.
Where I'm at right now is I personally cannot approve this without questions being answered, and I guess I would say to table this, and a representative from Snyder and Associates will be present in-house at the next meeting.
Second.
So, you had a first and a second already.
You have a motion
Oh, I-
on the
Let's
floor
I withdraw
already.
mine. If
Those
I-
motions?
Who was,
I have a motion on the floor.
Cody did,
Yeah,
and Rich
I
seconded.
oh,
second.
sorry,
So it'd be up to Cody to withdraw.
yep.
You approved.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Thanks, Cody.
And I'll withdraw my second.
Thank you.
So we'll table the,
Now you can
Tammy,
make a
you
motion
will-
to table.
You will reach out to Snyder to make sure they have a representative here.
And you gonna make a motion to table?
If it's necessary, that's my motion.
And I'll second it.
Motion to table until the first meeting in January.
Yes, providing they have a rep here.
So are we tabling all of,
This is just the change order,
alright,
providing a representative from Snyder's can be here. And that was Rod and Bill. Right?
Mm-hmm.
okay, so on that tabling the change order, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 9.6, discussion and possible action on pay request number 4 for the Second Street Lift Station Improvement Project to Reckless Excavating in the amount of $471,759.74.
This does not include the change orders list. If you look at the change order, it just is the initial amount.
That would have been my question, that 51,000 plus is not.
Nope, it's not included in this
okay.
change order. During this pay request.
Move to approve.
First by Bill,
Second.
second by Cody. Any discussion? those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 9.7, discussion and possible action approving change orders number 5 and 6 for the 2017 STP project to Horsfield Construction Incorporated in respective amounts of is that a negative?
A negative.
Negative $282,832.86 and $1,778.65.
Hello, Council. This is Scott Putoff with MMS Consultants. I can be here and answer any questions that you have on these two change orders.
Scott, thank you for being present. It should be noted for future work that MMS has on multiple times been present in-house after the work had started to bring us up to speed and answer questions that we had. Again, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Just going to go over these quick.
If you would.
Okay. So, change order number 5 is liquidated damages. There were 10 days of liquidated damages, $1,000 a day for $10,000. And then by DOT specification for the PCC pavement item, when they cut cores, based on the thickness of the cores, they can gain an incentive of up to 3% of the item. In this case, all the cores were well above the thickness required, and so they got the maximum incentive of the 71.6714. So just they kind of got lumped together in the same change order here. So yeah, the total change is actually a credit of 2832.86.
So the 7167 is, put it a little bit more layman's terms, is that because they're getting a bonus for doing the job
That they're supposed
that's
to do.
required?
Yep.
At
Yes.
At
Yes.
a acceptable level or greater?
Well, yeah, it's greater. Yeah, I think just acceptable is just, but because they're thicker, there was an incentive of up to 3% of the cost of the PCC paving item itself, and so that's what the incentive was.
Is that typical?
On DOT project, yes, by DOT specs, it is typical, right? And you know, earlier we had a change order for them to cut the cores, and so that was something we didn't originally have in the plans because it didn't, I guess, never got brought up that was supposed to be that way. But by specification, because our item was more than 5,000 square yards of paving, this applies. Just it does as part of the federal aid and DOT part of things. It's just one of the requirements.
And the city, if I'm not correct on this, we're only 20% of
Yes,
that
that's right.
total
That's
numbers
right.
anyway. I mean,
That's
I
right.
shouldn't say anyway, but if you're looking at $10,000, only 2,000 of that's the city's responsibility.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you, the DOT took and dangled this carrot out there for them to give a little extra.
Right.
And they met that.
Yep.
So they're getting the full $7,000.
Right.
The 10,000 in liquidated damages,
Is a credit back.
that's to the DOT or to the city?
To the project.
Yeah, it's to the project. It basically is in this case, it's canceling out this incentive that they got. But it's a liquidated damages. The way it describes in the spec book is a predetermined amount of damage that the city incurs for not meeting the completion date. So you agree to it going in, and so therefore it's because I've been through this fairly recently on another job. Where it wasn't so clear cut, so I'm pretty familiar with it. But because it's difficult to itemize the actual amount of damages, having that road closed for 10 extra days in this case, what the actual, it's hard to quantify that in money. So you agree to this up front, and $1,000 a day is, again, in this case, specified by the DOT for the size of the project. Bigger projects have bigger liquidated damages, but in this case it was a predetermined amount, and so this is just to kind of document that it's getting paid.
I don't want to leech on to the money, but the DOT put the perk out there. The city of Anamosa residents, the public was the ones that were inconvenienced by 10 days delay in project completion. To me, like, they should be separated.
Separated in
Well,
what way?
the DOT is the one that, to me, should be paying the extra $7,000 bonus.
Well, it's federal aid eligible. I mean, it's 80/20, right? Yep.
Anamosa was the one that was,
So the $10,000 is not federal aid eligible. So the DOT doesn't get 80% of that 10 grand back. The city gets that 10 grand back. Does that make sense?
that now it does.
Okay.
yes. All right, thank you.
Because if you look on the change order there, it's not checked federal aid here at the bottom, and so it's outside of, so the DOT is not taking 8 grand of that back. That's all coming back to the city.
Thank you, Rod. I was confused by that when I read it, just because it's not a language or a thing that I'm
Yeah.
used to seeing.
Yeah, it's different, yeah. So then change order number 6 is by specification again for the DOT. These 4 items are paid at planned quantity. Because we ended up with a little bit different quantity, a little bit less driveway, a little bit more sidewalk than what the planned quantity was, we need a change order to just document the changes. So in the end, it's a $1,778 additional dollars. The majority of the extra was some additional sidewalk that we replaced. That was we were going to do the driveway, but then the sidewalk itself was pretty bad. We couldn't really tie to it very well without causing a bigger problem. In the end, it was decided let's take I think it was through 2 different driveways. One was a fairly narrow driveway, and then the other was a little bit wider. So in the end, we ended up with more sidewalk removal and replacement. On the flip side, we did a little bit less driveway removal and replacement, just the way it worked out. Going to existing joints just didn't end up quite working out to the same as what the plan said. So this number 6. A lot of this stuff in number 6 has already been. We've already kind of gone through that with our pay request. This is just kind of a documentation tool at the end. But certainly there's an add of $1,700 some dollars, right?
So as far as the sidewalk that obviously could not be preserved, that's $4,000 increment based on the sidewalk with the removal, and I'll take it as just over $3 grand as a repour, correct?
A repour? Yeah. I mean, we removed and replaced additional.
Yes.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Where the driveway is listed on this is more of a credit back.
Yep.
The sidewalk is a debit against.
Mm-hmm. Right. And like I said, it's kind of just almost an accounting way of looking at it, or a documentation way of looking at it. In the way several other items, if you look close to the pay request, were a little bit different than planned quantity, just based on actual work that was done. But by specification, you just make the adjustment to what work was done. By specification, these particular items have to have a change order to document that change.
The quantity for the sidewalk, is that number list, is that like linear?
Square yards. So
Square yards?
Yeah. So if we were, a lot of it out there was 5 foot wide. So, without doing that, but yeah, there was. Well, I would say we had probably maybe 100 foot or so, maybe extra.
Thank you for the explanation on that. You guys ready to vote?
Need a motion.
All,
Move to approve.
first by Bill,
Second.
second by John. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll stay up here for the pay request in case there's any questions on that.
9.8, discussion and possible action on pay request number 4 for that 2017 SDP street project. to Horsefield Construction Incorporated in the amount of $70,446.61.
Move to approve. Second.
First by Bill, second by Cody. Any questions or discussion?
So let me just say one thing. So this would be final quantities here. So we should we got to pay the two change orders that we just did. So we have to add take 2,800 off, add the 17, and then do. But the 17 is already accounted for in this, and those quantities are already being paid. So like I said, the change order is kind of a documentation thing, but I'll have to note that there was a change order here on the front, so the total contract actually changes by that amount. But you can see what at the front here, we're about 98% of the contract is what the work that actually got paid for and done. So we're actually a hair less than the total original bid price on this. Not original bid price of the bid prices with the change order, which include that 20-some thousand that we paid our portion of, right? But we'll have at least one more change order, or one more pay request, excuse me, for retainage. We still have to go through the audit from the DOT, so I can't guarantee you there won't be a change order that comes out of that as well, just for whatever reason. So, but we should be getting this thing wrapped up here in the next month or two. So, thank you.
That retainage is at $21,307.
That's right. Yep.
You'll have we have to do a resolution to accept the project
Right.
that,
Yes.
that relates to that retainage, and release in 30 days, right?
Yep. Yeah, but all that kind of has to happen after this DOT audit comes through.
Correct.
Right. Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 9.9, discussion possible action on pay request number 3 for the water treatment plant expansion project to Kalichi.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Construction in the amount of $124,212.50.
So moved. Second.
First by Cody, second by Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried.
Before we go any further past all this construction stuff, can I ask a question and get some information before the next meeting? And that's on that retaining wall on Walworth?
I'm gonna discuss that during the city administrator report,
Okay,
so then we can talk about it then.
all right, thank you.
Yep, got it on the list.
9.10, discussion and possible action on payment of bills for the month of December 2017.
Move to approve.
Second. First by Bill, second by Cody. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. 10.0, city administrators report.
Just a couple things, to update the council regarding, the cemetery flowers arrangements and reimbursements. We have till the end of December is what we told the public. As to date, we have $644.17, which, is a combination of 11 requests. So I will have a list for you, either at the first or second, probably the second meeting in January for approval with the bills, if that's, makes sense to you guys.
They have till the end of this year?
The end of December, yes.
You know, that might be something, if you guys don't mind, on your police department website, just put a Facebook reminder out there so the public knows we haven't just not.
Facebook page for city
We can,
hall.
we can put it on our website. We can do a
Do
flash.
the website, also do it on the Facebook page. I think that,
We haven't really had a lot of,
I know, but
even the people that have a, yes.
I would like to see it put out there.
Sure.
The public deserves us to say, you guys have till the end of the week, come in and
Yep.
bring your receipts.
2 days.
I know, but it should have been done sooner. But I didn't think about it till this moment, so sorry about that.
After the meeting, I'd like for the new candidates, or the re-elected candidates, if it's possible to do the oath of office. John Markart, Rod, and Dale, and the other candidate, incumbent, will be here January 2nd to do hers separately, so you're welcome to stay after the meeting if you want. Pictures, Kevin. I'm talking about for the paper, so. I had some questions, and I did some follow-up on the old hospital site. I have contacted, his name is Mel from the Department of Natural Resources, Mel Penns. I did a little research, and there's some brownfield assistance that's available for us to do a asbestos assessment, because that building will need an asbestos assessment done. Randy Caspers, who had looked at the site at one point, had told me that there was one already done, but in talking to Mel, we can apply, we will qualify for that grant. We can get up to $25,000 to pay for that assessment. He's estimating, he's very familiar with the areas from the Dubuque County, grew up in this area, so he said knew the building, knew what I was talking about when I talked to him today. He's estimating that that assessment would be about $5,000 to do the whole building, whether it's the roof. What I was indicated from Randy is that the asbestos is not in the tiles, it's in the caulking in the building. That's where they said the majority of it is. So if the council's okay with it, we can start the process to have them. I need a letter. He needs a copy of the court order from Adrian on that acquisition of title under that section of the code, and then a letter from the city requesting that process. So that would be a great start for the city to determine, with that no cost to the city reimbursement wise, so we could determine what the asbestos is in the building. And then there is also a second step in that where the city can, they will pay under that same brownfield grant, they will pay 50% up to $25,000 of the actual abatement. So I just thought it'd be a good idea for us to look into that and get that started, so make it more viable for a potential buyer. The other thing I checked into was with Dorsey and Whitney. We do have the opportunity. It's not in an urban renewal area. You could add it to our urban renewal area. It would be eligible to do some type, but we'd have to have a plan in place, whether you want to pay for demolition with TIF money, because right now that tax base is zero, because that project, that building has always been on it with that tax exempt entity. So once we get that assessment done, the council can look at it and decide how far does the city want to step into it with the funds that may be available with TIF? To make it more viable, whether you demolish it, if the abatement's gonna be so expensive and you're not gonna have much of a building left once you abate that, is it better to demolish it?
I would like what you just shared to be put in writing and sent in the next packet to absorb it, to process it,
Yes.
and on the agenda for the next time.
And I do, if you wanna pass these around, this is from Mel, which explains the process and the steps for everybody to review. You can keep one there and pass those on. So I just thought, as much as the council wants to move forward with that, I think that kind of gives us an avenue to, I'm just throwing it out there for everybody to process.
So my question is, you get that first $25,000 grant, is it up to $25,000
The, first, it's to do
for the assessment?
To do the assessment for the asbestos,
And if they
up to
only,
25,
okay, so,
100%. It's a reimbursement.
okay, that answers my question.
This
So,
I was hoping
I'm
we could
very
use that
familiar
other
with the
20,000.
brownfield thing. They do a lot of environmental
Cause that would get us
services and
45,000.
But I mean, if the assessment's only 5.
I
it's
understand.
not- So,
I got it now,
but just to
that's my
kind of
question.
give you some ideas. And also, I was asked about how much expenses the city has in that property so far. I checked with Adrian, it's $2,280.
If we can just have all of that in writing
I can do
and
that.
sent to us for the next, I'd like to put it on the agenda for next time.
In regards to your question, when I sent the memo out, the replacement, the upsizing of the sewer main down Walworth Avenue, the connection to the house that is owned by Alan K. Struther, I don't know what side you call it, the baseball side of that street, they had to reconnect their service line. They have a retaining wall in the city right of way. I saw no agreement to do that. It's been there for a long time. So it's in the city right of way. Their service line connects underneath that retaining wall. Rickliffs had to take a section of that retaining wall out, dig it up, and connect that line, their service line, to the new sewer main. So I was approached by Al and Kay Struther that they would, they expect the city to put that back in. My first response in previous projects is the city wouldn't usually put that back in, not normally. They chose to put that retaining wall there. We pay to get it dug up and connected. That's it. That's usually all the city does. But the other question I had for the property owner was, so even if you put it back in, or the city agrees to, because he wants this council to help pay for part of it. We have all the brick, or all the stone, we just need a little gravel, and then the labor to put it in. But in response to that, I asked the property owner, do you really want to put a retaining wall back on that service connection? Because in the future, you're gonna end up with that, may have to pull it out again and dig it all up at your cost.
But it won't be if okay, so my question is, when Reckless comes and did a bid, do these people know, they don't know where these water lines are, they don't know where these sewer lines are, they're just doing these bids, not knowing they're gonna have to dig up a park for 4 days, not knowing they're gonna have to go to this retaining wall? Nobody knows where these water lines are, or sewer lines are? My thing is, why would the city pay for that? Why would that not be part of the expense of your contractor doing the work?
For one thing, Walworth wasn't part of this original contract because we found out after the fact that there was a downsizing and then an upsizing again. So when they looked at up and down, it was the same size. They didn't know they had an 8-inch line in the middle.
Well,
So that necessitated that whole Walworth thing, that 22 days and the extra money that they didn't plan on when they did the bid in the first place.
and I understand that, Bill, but you discovered that because you discovered the line. So you discovered the line went to that retaining wall. So the upcharge and the bid should have included the cost of
It did.
putting things back the way it was, including the retaining wall. Why would the city pay for that, is my question.
The city doesn't pay to put it back. The city pays to connect it, which is removing what wall is there. That's part of the change order with Bricklifts. That's already
Okay.
included.
Because
What
your
is not
memo-
included,
So they haven't put in,
they haven't,
Ricklifs hasn't billed us to put it back.
no,
I think because they realize that
They don't
it's in
know
the
who-
right of way, and it
nor,
probably shouldn't be an expense to the city to put it back.
correct.
Because in your memo, you said that Al offered to do the work, that his son Kelby will do the work if the city will pay for his labor.
To
My
put it back
question-
in.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. Why would the city pay that?
Why would you put it back in? Because we've been arguing over Crane Street cement, over the cement that we just approved tonight. I mean, it's on city right away again.
I guess if they wanna put it back in themselves and pay for it themselves, knowing the fact that potentially it could be dug out again, I guess have at it.
With zero cost to the city.
Right, if you enjoy your retaining wall and you know,
I mean, that was my question, is I couldn't understand. When you said if the city will pay his labor, I'm like, why would we do that?
Because if they call a plumber that has to do anything from the house to that street, they're gonna have to dig it all up again. And the front yard probably.
And that's how I explained it to the property owner, but he wanted me to ask the council their thoughts.
Rickliff's made a very good attempt to not dig that wall up.
They kept it, they narrowed it as much
They
as they
pipe,
could.
tried to pipe burst it all first, and then realized that there was a lateral coming off it under the wall. So,
I just was throwing it out there to the council to see if there was any thoughts one way or the other at the property owner's request. So that's what I'm doing,
Yes, I would be opposed to paying for it.
okay?
Yeah.
That's,
One thing I would like to add is we don't know where each individual sewer or service line comes into the mains, sewer mains, so we have no way of knowing that. So we do rely on camera work and the prep by the contractor to find them things.
and that was in their part of their change order. They have televising Walworth Avenue, so Rickliff's found it at that point, but
And I do have one
there's
more.
already a retaining wall on it, so it doesn't matter at that point, other than,
And-
it's just unfortunate for K and Al that they have to
Right.
pay to replace it.
Well, and
think
I appreciate that, and I'm not like going after Rickless or anything, I'm just saying, when the contractor is doing the job of this magnitude, you would think that all that prep work, they would kind of have an idea of, if I'm bidding it for this much, kind of what it was gonna take, so.
One other comment I would like to make is an initial contract when we were
Can
letting.
you, so, I don't like when you guys are behind me talking. Sorry.
That's all right. Dan Smith, 2048 Sycamore, I'm the wastewater superintendent. I believe when this initial contract, when we're taking bids for all these contractors on Second Street, Rod, I believe Lindsay or Snyder's recommended to Al that we do liquidated damages, and he declined. You might check into that, but I'm pretty sure she did address that. Sitting back and just thinking about this.
liquidated damages are in the contract.
He chose not to enforce them, is what I understood it.
He doesn't have the authority to
I'm just
enforce
telling
or
you what
not
I
enforce.
recalled, and
It's in the contract.
it's in an email.
It's in the contract,
Just telling you.
Okay.
so,
Thank
the
you.
council decision.
Thanks,
And-
Dan.
Thanks.
The next thing I had was, I was gonna pass around these pictures. In the memo, I mentioned, the sidewalk along Walworth Avenue, on the school side is the side with the sidewalk. That has some large areas of, sinking all the way along the curb line down that hill.
I've seen the whole
It's been brought to, Dick Stivers has brought it to my attention. I had Greg go out and look at it. He doesn't see anything on the street side that's causing that. He said it's a natural drainage, and that's where it's gonna flow along that edge, and it's gonna naturally push that drain down in between and drop that sidewalk. What brought it up was Rickliff's, when they were doing that, sewer line on Walworth. It looks like, can't say for sure, one of those panels, was driven on, and it cracked it quite a bit. So Greg had the school put up, because of the bad condition of it, not only because of that cracking panel, but the whole sidewalk in and of itself, set up some barricades along there. And that's what those pictures
That
Are-
sidewalk is
are
bad for a
illustrating.
while.
And I know that in the discussion with the joint discussion with the council and the school board a year ago, or 9 months ago, I can't remember how long ago it was. I think it was after you were
Yeah,
on
it was after
council.
John and I got on.
So that would have been after February. Anyway, the school has indicated they don't wanna pay for that sidewalk to be replaced or repaired. In fact, one of the employees there, Tom, said that they just wanna take it out. So.
How can they?
And so, just so you know, I mean, it's something that's gonna have to be addressed. We can, as a city, can require them, because it is in the ordinance, that's their responsibility to maintain that sidewalk. So you can ask them to do it and give them a timeline, and if they don't get it done, you can repair it, replace it, and assess it against the property taxes. But I need to ask Adrian that question, because I'm not sure how that works with the school being a tax exempt entity. And I can't answer that,
So-
but I'm,
Can people just take a sidewalk out if they want? I mean, that can't be done.
not according to the ordinance, no. Once the sidewalk's in, they're required to maintain that.
So there is a storm drainage under that sidewalk. And I'd imagine, in my professional opinion, that there's some breaks in that pipe that are allowing dirt to get in and undermine the sidewalk.
So you think it is an issue on our side,
I
maybe
don't,
contributing?
there is some storm drainage piping under that sidewalk, and it goes, if you look where the barricades stop, it dumps into a catch basin, and then farther down the hill, the panels don't settle anymore, because there's no more utility under them, so.
Well, that almost should have been addressed and fixed when we had World War IV.
Well, when we had the joint meeting, it was discussed having that camered all down that side of the street to see if there was any breakage.
in this
And
one, so.
from what I understand, it's never been done.
I can have
so-
Greg check into that. Is that something Dyersville can camera for us, Dan?
They
It's-
might be able to camera that for us.
It's 8 inch.
They should be able to.
Do we know when they're gonna start cameraing all our stuff?
They did a quarter of the town this fall. We'll do another quarter as their schedule allows, next 4 years.
Can I have Greg contact you to talk
Yeah.
about that, and maybe we can set something up if you guys are okay with that, to look at the camera and that?
That'd be fine.
As long as you don't mind using, whether they bill us for it or take that off the, that's
How are
up.
you guys wanna do it?
We can work it out.
I think it's a good idea to look at the pipe before we go
Assuming that it's not on.
authorizing
In,
sidewalk replacement.
in about 2010, it wasn't like that.
It was settling already, and
But it was to the top of the curb, and in the past 8 or so years, it's settled down that
My
far.
girl-
I
Girls
know
were
in the
going to
past
school
2
there.
years it's been horrible.
it's gotten a lot worse, but it was already settling when my girls were going to school there.
Hey, Cody, correct my memory, but didn't they just charge out of the boilers right down that sidewalk at one time?
Yeah.
Yep, out of an 8-inch pipe.
That's
Yeah,
what I
that
was
was
wanting,
dumb.
probably wash that sidewalk
I don't
out.
know, once a week, I don't know how often, it was pretty
Yeah.
often.
The school did?
Yes.
Just where they had to drain their boiler, that's what they did.
So in the fall, or in the spring, they would drain boilers down.
I can't remember, but I thought that was correct.
Just a couple more things. Regarding the, December 11th regular council meeting, the video was going, and I apologize. The audio was great, but there was no video at all. So I talked to Mark Whitmore, who helped us set this up. His suggestion is, change those SD cards out every 3 months. So that's what I'm doing. And I tested it right away after the meeting. When I realized that one didn't go, the audio was great, but there was no video. But then I tested it right away and did my, and I could see myself and it worked well, so, same SD card, so I don't know what the deal is, but I will continue to change those out to stay. And I apologize again for that. The other question, I had a lady approach me, well, in a discussion, not approach me, she's looking at wanting to rent a small office space, to do her knitting, or not knitting, but sewing and some yarn. She does yarn out of wool. She does it out of her home. She has children. She just is looking for a space to do it during the day, to give her some separation and some room. This front office here, I showed it to her just to see what she thought of it. She would just work during city hall hours, not need a key to the building. It wouldn't interfere with anything. We're never over here. I didn't know if the council would be interested in, we used to rent out the upstairs, which we don't anymore because of the steps and liability issues, but I didn't know if the council would want me to research the cost of that, or if she was even still interested in renting out that front room. We just have a few storage items in there, so. I just thought it's kind of silly to have a room sitting empty and not being used if somebody wants to. And she'd do it on a trial basis.
I personally would like to wait at least until Jacob gets here so
Okay.
he can assess it and
Sure.
see if there's maybe a need that he could think of that the city might use it for.
Sure.
That's a good idea.
The last thing I had was the budget. I gave you the budget calendar. Busy couple of months, so I tried, just for your information, because you've never been through a budget yet, Rich.
John and
Or
I
John.
both.
So basically what we try to do is a couple budgets every meeting, work session, or at the end of a regular session, to keep it brief enough where people can focus without losing attention span. So I've met met with a couple of the department heads already, and I should hopefully by the end of the week have met with the rest of them, so. We'll get those scheduled as they come up. If you have any questions on any of that during the process, please feel free to call me or ask me.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you. 11.0 Mayor and Council reports on boards and commissions.
I passed out the invite to the tourism annual meeting, January 23rd, 5:30 at the Motorcycle Museum. Hope you guys all can come. There's gonna be door prizes and I guess some food and so forth to eat, so if you can, mark it on your calendar.
Has he sent out, usually I get my annual tourism board dues,
I don't know if those have been sent out yet.
okay. Cause without me in the coffee house, I wanna make sure that I still get them. I mean,
Sure.
you might as well send one to her and continue to send us one,
Okay.
so. And if, I think I might be in town tomorrow, I might slip in and say something
All right.
to him. Thanks, Rich.
Library meeting last week. The group is working on the proposed budget for the 2018-2019 year. They approved new hour and staffing policies. They have elected, elected Barb Cleese as the vice president. Rebecca showed a website tour of their new website. Very, very impressive. It captures all the moving parts of the library. You may have missed your calling.
Don't tell
It's
her
that impressive. She could find time, maybe she could work on the city's website. That's all I have.
Anybody else? 12.0 Public with business with the council on items not on the agenda.
I'm John Ely, 301 North Davis Street. And I thank Pat for this information. Basically, that was what I was trying to find out in 9.3. 9.4 is kind of passed. What I would like to know is when it says discussion, is the public allowed to participate? Some time ago, the council said, okay, when there's discussion, you can get up if you have some issue or some comment to make and do that. But tonight, there were certain items you can't do that on. So I'd kind of like to know what's fair game and what isn't.
Well, I always let you talk on 12.0, John, business, public with business. And I guess if the rest of them don't mind, I'll just let you chatter away for however long you want on the rest of them where discussion's possible.
Well, I had something to say about the city attorney, but that contract's already been voted on.
No,
So it wouldn't really do any good, would it?
you can give your opinion.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that on the World Wide Web, or I can write a letter to the editor,
Sure.
wherever it'll do some good, but it's a done deal, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, do you have something to say regarding it or not?
Well, it won't do any good, so I don't.
$13.0 adjournment.
Wanda, did you want to talk?
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Morning meeting. Wanda Tukin, and I have a business downtown called Gatherings. I just had a thing with my water bill today, and I tried to discuss it as high as I could go, and I guess you guys are the next ones. I paid my bill on the 19th of December, but I actually grabbed checks out of my home that were from when my bank was a Security Bank and not Fidelity, and didn't realize it and wrote 11 checks. Well, they don't go through because it's now a different bank. So I came to the water department and explained my situation to them and said I would pay them with the new check today. Well, they waived a $25 fee, but I still got a charge of $30, even though my bill is not due till January 1st. And so I just feel that that fee shouldn't be charged. I paid it before it's even due. And I realize you have to have standards with everybody, but I still think you should listen to some. My record is really good. I have paid my bill on time all the time, and $30 may not be a lot, but to me it is.
Was that for using the wrong check? That $30 bank charge?
I'm surprised I've not done that stuff.
So
I mean-
what was the $25 fee that she was charged?
Well, that was waived. but I-
The procedure would be, if someone writes a check and it's a non-sufficient fund check, for whatever reason, closed account, insufficient funds, whatever, we get it back. Wanda came to us ahead of time because she found out from her bank that it was, so
There was
she already
issues.
knew about it. So she came before we actually got the return check.
Yeah, they haven't
which
even
people
gotten the
do.
return check.
So we don't have to, normally what we do is post the door, because we don't hear from the client or the customer first. We get the return check, we post the door.
For
or to-
non-payment,
For
though.
non-payment, to remind them, you have to pay the $25 doorpost fee, plus our $30 NSF fee, which is standard. And
But the
the
bank
reason we
also-
charge, the reason we charge a $30 NSF fee is because, first of all, every city is allowed to do that up to 30. We do it
Every
because
business.
we do it, even though our bank does not charge us because we're a public entity. We still charge everybody 30 because it has to be touched by 3 different people in order for that to be processed. And writing a bad check, for whatever reason, is fraudulent.
Well,
And,
I'm
and
gonna.
it is illegal, so
Let's
that's
stop.
what an
Can
NSF check
we
is
have
for.
time out? Let this, I would say, you didn't do anything fraudulent.
Right.
You made a human error.
Right.
I have done things like that before.
Can I also say one other thing?
Is there any way we can waive this?
If you waive it for one, it's just like any of our
But
other
she came
policies.
ahead
mean,
of time.
You
And
people
I
do
have
that
one
all the
other
time.
statement.
All right,
Like one time, I was
People
late
do-
with my sales tax bill because my husband was in the hospital and I forgot to pay it. They looked back on my record and my record was good, so they waived it and said they wouldn't charge me. They do it once every 3 years. I mean, I don't think my record's bad.
and I'm gonna say this. She came before it was due, she paid it before it was due, she came with a new check before it was due. She said, here, take this check, tear that one up. I don't see where she's the normal case of somebody who's been late or habitual offender. And when you say, if you do this for one, you have to do it for all, if somebody comes in today and pays with a check off the wrong account, comes in tomorrow with the new check,
I'd be willing to do that for all of them.
I mean, right?
Well,
I'm
and
not-
the bank told me it would be sent back as a retired routing number. They didn't say it would say NSF. And I did go to the bank, the Citizens Bank, and try to catch it, but they'd already mailed it. So they couldn't do anything about it. And I don't like to complain, but and $30 is just a lot when I've always paid it on time. So.
I've had my bank call me and say, Betty, you got checks coming in, I'm transferring money from your now account into it, like, you, I'm like, I was gonna do that when I go back to the office, thanks, it's great. I say a little bit of service goes a long way.
I'm with
And
Betty.
in this case, I would never say you were writing bad checks or being fraudulent. I would be very careful.
I'm not saying that she
And-
is, but legally, that's what a bad check is
But we're not
about.
attorneys, so we're not gonna say legally. We're gonna say a mistake was made, can we fix it? That's,
So, just for clarification, if anybody comes in early, before we actually get the check back, and they replace it, we're not gonna charge them the $30. That's true for everybody, cause we've never done that in the past.
I mean, how many times has it happened
I
in the
was just
past?
gonna say,
I-
should this be a case by case basis, say, this
Well,
is
no,
our
you have
procedure?
to set
Did you look back on
standards.
the record to see
I've
how
got-
they paid their bills?
I can tell you in the last year, I've had 5 people do the same thing as she's done.
Did you look back on the record?
I can tell you there's 5 people.
Tammy?
But on the record of payment, like, did they pay their bills always?
We didn't look back on their record, no. But basically, we
that's what
treated them
Let's
the
just
same.
stick to this case. This circumstance, the one before us, the person who came to the city, the one that took the time to address the council, I'm gonna say I would like to see the fees waived on this case.
And I did already pay it,
The fees.
because that's what I was.
And I would like to see the customers for the city of Anamosa maybe treated like customers.
I think most of the people and the reason Tammy doesn't have to go back and look is most of the customers that have this kind of a situation are repeat,
Agree.
posted, just poor money management. And
I
so
know, and I
not
run a
similar,
business, so I know that.
not similar to what you've done or the other 5 that Tammy's aware of, so.
So, did you get rid of the old checks?
Well, yes, I had to call 11 different people today, I was very upset.
So,
I'm sorry that happened.
It was
Wanda, that is
horrible.
such a Betty move.
It's really bad.
I'm with Betty on that. I think on a case-by-case basis, this certainly makes sense to not charge that NSF fee.
I mean, if somebody feels the need to take the time to come and discuss it with us,
I agree.
rather than just
And it
scream
took
and
a lot,
holler,
because I don't like to do this.
I don't have a problem hearing these things case by case at times when needed.
5 times a year? I agree. So, just so I'm clear, all surcharges or fees have been waived on this occurrence.
We'll have to do a refund check, cause it's already been.
Can you
paid.
credit it
You've
for the
already-
Credit it
account?
to next bill.
Can't credit the account, no, because it doesn't go on the account itself, it goes
Yeah.
into our
I
receivables.
can give you another check tonight.
That check's already through the system, I can't reverse that check, I'll have to do a refund check.
Which is fine, we'll do the refund check. It's all good, sorry that happened, Wanda.
Thank you for your.
Sorry.
I hope the other 10 go okay.
Thanks, Wanda.
Thank you.
Alright, 13.0 adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
First by Rich, second by Cody. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried.
Your last meeting?
Last meeting.